What's up everybody, Coach Mills here, and with Shroud's epic return of over 500,000 people watching him on Twitch, I thought it was only right to do an in-depth VOD review breakdown of one of his competitive matches so that we can learn how to click heads just like Shroud. But before we get started, if you want your own personal K2 Black Panther tank, then I will personally send you one if you smash the like and subscribe button. So who doesn't want a tank? Come on now, smash the like and subscribe, but let's just jump right into it, shall we? Now, starting it right off, Shroud's team is rotating Cat on pistol round with Spike, so Shroud lurks mid for just a second. Watch how he blindly sprays and checks this corner through the smoke and then instantly waits for a potential swing. He then sprays through the smoke again and upwards towards the left side of box. This would be called free damage, where it could tag enemies through the smoke or elicit a response. Basically, it's free value. Now the key, however, when you do a play like this is always be ready for an enemy to push you through the smoke because they could use your fire as some sort of catalyst to make a move on you. Now as he backs up and reloads, his team gets in a fight in Cat. He turns back around to get in a duel with the Sage. Watch how he takes this duel because it can give us some insight about how to win some pistol rounds and some intricacies as far as trying to duel an enemy. Shroud takes his time with the first couple of shots to ensure that they connect, and he tries for headshots. While he doesn't hit headshots directly, he does connect with 2 body shots, meaning that the enemy is weak, and in order to finish them off, he starts rapid firing his pistol, firing it much faster than he was before. The big takeaway for you is that you want to be precise early on, but if you accumulate damage on the enemy, then you just want quick connection, not necessarily perfect shots, because headshots don't really matter, so you can speed up the pace of your fire as an enemy's health total is lower, just like Shroud. Now he does kill the Sage, but his team dies here, leaving him in a 1v2. And on top of that, he has to push up and contest a spike, which is a situation I'm sure many of you have been in, where you literally have to go contest a spike. Enemies know perfect information, they can just guard the spike, and it's very, very difficult for you to proceed from there. Now, something about this though is notice his crosshair placement and his patience. He has a lot of time to work here and doesn't force of engagement. That's really important. Look at the time on the clock. He doesn't have to run in. He has time. If he wins the matchup or if he takes his time, he still has plenty of time to plant the spike. Now the enemy Cypher is going to place the camp, but he will instantly destroy it. Doesn't want to give the enemy any information because in a 1v2, if enemies get information about you, you will 100% lose that matchup. So basically isolating that information is king, and he snaps right back to head level after he destroys the camp. Now after Cypher throws a cage, a really traditional strat as enemies will push through, so he sprays through it to either deal damage or prevent the Cypher from pushing in. This is a tactic that you can do to prevent enemies from pushing, but remember, if your weapon is not silenced like Shroud's, it will show the enemies exactly where you are. Shroud can do this for free here because he has a silenced pistol. Now he backs up behind cover to reload, throws his nano swarm and activates it, and then swings over, half expecting a Cypher to have crossed. He fires in a consistent motion as he crouches, steady fire head level, and the enemy gets tagged and headshotted, and Shroud does win the matchup, but is left at an incredibly low HP. Now, a big takeaway for you, the true star here actually is the setup nano swarm, but this could be any swing stopping ability. You see, Shroud speculated that a Cypher could have crossed and wanted to quickly swing him because that's the most effective way to take an engagement, is to quickly swing an enemy if you kind of know where he is. Now the problem is, if he's wrong and he swings really rapidly that corner, he's gonna make a lot of noise and enemies could swing back to him from Cat after he makes that noise, so he couldn't afford to be wrong. Now basically this nano swarm allowed him to isolate one corner, prevent him from getting peeked from that corner, and swing the other, so even if enemies knew where he was, they actually couldn't follow up to swing him if he was wrong about the enemy Cypher crossing. This is really something you should do in your games to force a proper aggressive engagement, not one that gets you counter swung. If there's 2 possible angles that enemies could be from, use an ability to block off one while you can commit to the other, so that even if you're wrong, you're not going to get punished for it. Now, even though he won, he's at 20 HP, and the enemy is shotgunning, a shotgunning Brim, but that enemy makes a really big mistake here. At low HP, if the Brim would have just guarded the spike, it would have been GG for Shroud. However though, the Brim actually sets up in tree room and not only gave up the spike, but hidden tree with 50+ seconds left, and this not only let Shroud potentially rotate off, but the possibility of Shroud potentially rotating off put him in a chase scenario where Shroud turns the table on this Brimstone and kills him instantly. Here's a big takeaway for you. Don't be that Brimstone. Pretty obvious. But that Brimstone only needed to hit Shroud with one shot. He had perfect info because his teammates would have been able to call how much damage they did to Shroud. All he needed was information about where Shroud was, and to do that, he needed to guard the spike. This was a huge clutch by Shroud to secure the round, but if you were that Brimstone and you just held close and watched the spike, there was no possible way that Shroud wins this. Now in the next round, check out this no respect cat peek from Shroud. His perfect head level counter strafe to catch the tiny sliver peek angle of Cat. Now I'm not going to say that this is a great move, as the Opera missed what could have been an easy shot. That being said, however, there are several things that we can learn from here. One, Shroud already knew where he wanted to aim before swing, so he didn't need to flick or make adjustments. His crosshair was already perfectly lined up after he swung out and stopped. Two, he committed to killing someone if they were there or not. He basically had it in his mind that someone was already going to be there, and if they're not, that's fine, but he swung this as if someone is 100% there, and that is why he lined up so perfectly to get the kill off here. The last thing is he was using a Vandal, not a Phantom. A Phantom wouldn't be able to one-shot headshot from this range, but a Vandal would, and I do think that if you're going to take this peek aggressively, first off, it's incredibly risky, but if you do want to do it, realize that the Vandal is going to be better at this kind of long peek engagement, especially if it's premeditated. Now the next play Shroud does might make no sense, but it's actually pretty smart. Shroud not only pops his ultimate mid, but sets up a turret mid as well, looking at his ult. Now this does two things. The first thing is it prevents any flanks from mid or B, because any enemy that pushes up could get caught in the ultimate. The second thing is, it lets Shroud predict where enemies will flush to, and Shroud actually uses this information to catch out a rotating Phoenix from Tree Room, which is something that he could understand because of where his ultimate was. You see, any enemies near B or mid will only have one place to rotate because that ultimate effectively cut off the entire flank rotation side. So after the pick off A, he could greatly suspect where enemies are going to be routing from. Now, the big takeaway for you is that with Killjoy's ult, you need to think more about where it forces enemies to be and where they can't be, and you can use that to cut off flanks and rotation, and it can be far more powerful than just sticking it near a point only to delay for a bit, and then they're still pushing it from all sections. You do not know where they're necessarily coming from, so the way he used it here really worked to his advantage in this scenario. Now, later on, check out this turret that has multi-use, and it's a really great turret that you should use in your games if you're Killjoy. It not only checks for a sniper or a peeker playing Cat, it guards the flank from B and mid at the same time. This multi-turret use is great because it can set up a favorable control of mid right off the bat, and then later on you can just leave it there and prevent yourself from getting flanked. It's a win-win scenario, and it's very good to do this kind of thing when you're trying to control mid. Now later, that same bot actually tags an Omen pushing Cat. Shroud pushes that Omen and shuts him down off the info that his drone got him. So basically, this just proves what I'm talking about here, where it's really multi-use, and the ability to actually set up a drone that could peek an angle right off the bat, but still have use later on, is pretty much invaluable. Now, a thing that happens next is Shroud enters A site, and Shroud will close the doors and then reload. Previously, he actually has used abilities like Nanoswarm to block off a push and then reload it as well. The big takeaway for you for this type of play is that no matter what you have to do, you need to make sure that you're safe while you're reloading at all costs. Whether that means waiting till you're safe behind a clear point or door, or using your abilities to prevent a swing, no matter what you got to do, reloading is the most opportune time for enemies to punish you. So investing abilities time or changing your positioning altogether before you reload is absolutely vital at a high level. Now, when he's behind this door, enemies will instantly start to pressure this door, but Shroud makes a powerful aggressive play here. You see, he breaks it himself, pushes through the door, and contests a reloading enemy and kills him. Now, yes, he does die to an Opper, but this sort of play is fantastic and can be used in other ways as well. A good example of this would be breaking a sage wall yourself as enemies are pushing in. You see, enemies, when they're breaking a structure or a wall, they think that it's on their terms. They think that they get to start the engagement. They can break the wall a little bit, reload, and then they can break it and go in when they're ready. The difference is, when you force the engagement, this is really unsuspecting. Just like it caught off the enemy when he was reloading, this is the kind of thing that creates. And you could do the same thing with sage walls. Don't be afraid to wait until it's near breaking, break it yourself, and use it to make an aggressive play, that can really catch enemies off guard. Plus, you get information generally about where they are because they're already breaking the doors or they're already breaking the sage wall. That can be something that you can use against the enemy for some free value, just like Shroud does. Here's Johnny. More like here's Shroud. Okay, sorry. Anyways, moving on to the next play. Watch as Shroud throws his Nano Swarm and activates it near double doors and swings the other angle. Effectively, he can isolate where he's getting peeked from, as no one is going to run through the Nano Swarm to maybe get a peek. This is a strong tactic similar to what we have talked about before, and yes, it applies to Nano Swarm, but any other AO ability will do, and it really lets you set up proper engagements. This is how you peek one angle. This is how you take control of mid, or peek any place where there is multiple sight lines that you can get swung from. If you ever fight one sideline on one enemy, if an enemy is playing another sideline, they will use that as the go-ahead to swing you. So you literally need to be investing AoE abilities to prevent them from doing so that you can have a fair and proper engagement. Now, the next thing he does is he actually wraps around and takes an alternate angle from his allies. This helps him secure a kill on the Omen. A big takeaway for you here is you never want to be playing right next to or right on top of your ally, because enemies can easily kill you both, and if you are playing adjacent from each other or really far away, the enemy would have to burst one of you and completely flick across the screen to burst the next one of you, which makes it very difficult, and you're just making those shots even harder for him, while at the same time putting pressure from multiple angles onto the enemy. Anyways, of course, we can't talk about Shroud without talking about his insane aim, and in order to grind this type of aim that Shroud has, he's put in tens of thousands of hours. We're going to be making more up-to-date guides on mechanical training drills and things that you could specifically improve your mechanics, but remember, the best way to improve your mechanics at the end of the day is grinding hard so that you can hit shots just like Shroud does. There's no quick pass to instantly become like Shroud, but through his gameplay, we can learn more and more and become better and better at Valorant. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you learned something. Definitely let me know if you like this kind of VOD review. I could do future Shroud VODs or any other streamer. Just give me a suggestion in the comments down below and smash that like and subscribe button. Of course, that's all we got for you today. Thank you for coming by. I'm Coach Mills, and of course, until next time.